My name is Carlin Borisenko, and you're listening to the Actively Unwoke podcast. You can find full archives of the podcast over on my Substack, which is Carlin, Karlyn, .substack.com. And if you feel so inclined, please support the work I'm doing by signing up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I am 100% grassroots funded by people just like you, and your donations will help me continue to research, expose, and educate about the far left in this country and all the dangers they pose to us, and hopefully, be able to mount a little bit of a resistance. All right, so sadly, there's been another school shooting, and it kind of seems like whenever this happens anymore, the very first question that we have to ask is, was this person trans? Was this person non-binary? Was this person on hormones? Was this person a leftist, a socialist? What was the deal with this person? And isn't that kind of like a sad state of affair? It does seem as though an awful lot of shooters do seem to have some connection with gender-affirming care, gender-affirming drugs, things like that. And it's one of those things that this stuff is all still so new that we don't really know what the long-term impact of this stuff is. But it seems more than a bit coincidental to me that there have been so many school shooters that seem to be especially young women who are put on testosterone, and then they go and do very bad things, and everyone wonders why, and maybe the answer is right in front of us all along, but also maybe not. Listen, I've done just the slightest little bit of research on this shooter, and to me, based on their posts on social media, it does look as though they were a girl that did identify as a boy. So that to me says trans in some way. Now, does that necessarily mean that they were on hormones? Does that necessarily mean that they've done anything more than cut their hair? No, it doesn't. And we shouldn't come to any conclusions without evidence, of course. But I'm looking at their Twitter profile right now, and that kind of seems to look like a boy to me, even though we know it was a girl. So, that's what we have to go on. But what we also have to go on is the first 2 pages, at least, of the person's manifesto. And so I actually haven't read this yet. This is going to be my first reaction to the manifesto. And I thought what I would do is read the manifesto to you, and I want to be able to analyze this based on decoding the language of the left, knowing how leftists speak, if this person is involved in the queer community at all, which of course queer is different than trans. We talk about that. Queer is more of a far left political ideology. Trans, of course, has to do with transitioning your gender from man to woman, woman to man. Queer actually doesn't see themselves as people who transition gender. They see themselves as people who transcend gender, doing things like non-binary and things like that. And so it is a little bit of a different categorization, but if we read this manifesto, it's going to be very clear to me whether or not this person was a far leftist, whether or not this person was a queer activist or involved in the queer community, because people from that particular subculture just use a lot of the same language, and so we're going to be able to tell that right quick. So I thought I would read to you this manifesto, and maybe this is the first time you've heard it too. And then at the end, I will make my assessment about whether or not I think this person was a queer activist. War against humanity. The creation of a disaster. And why is it so unfair? Hatred. Something everyone has gotten. In a sense, some people think it's pure nothing because of the hate they make. It ends up killing them without knowing it. Which go right ahead, I don't mind, but kind of do at the same time. You are just simply nothing but scum to the world, or to even think about. Nobody should want you or your body in any way. I hate seeing people on a daily basis just being so sensitive. Gives me one more reason to take off my glasses. The human scum is color and the way people are raised. I've grown around people who do not care or give one single care in the world and smoke their lungs out with weed or drink as much as they like, my own father. I've grown to hate people and society. It's truly not my fault, though. It never was. But all of you and the world have done to me is pick and tease me. You've pushed me into a corner with no help whatsoever. Humanity is filth. I don't like filth nor want to live in it, nor should anyone else, and I know it follows me and how it has followed me and will follow everyone because of how the world is run. There are so many things I wanted to do as a kid, yet I admit I was afraid of the other kids, and also even with my own parents. But I don't even trust them, and at that age as well as I didn't, and I never will. My parents are scum. There is nothing that will save them to make me think good of them ever again. No family to ever trust, and to never trust society. There is 2 people and only 2 people I trust, one partially and one I would never doubt. I can agree I don't know what I'm doing with my life, but neither do my parents or anyone around me. I have changed, and I will not go back to that ever again. I'm hardened. I'm different. The situation is the situation of a lifetime, is to get the fuck out moment and don't come back. I will never go back and nag my way through life. It's not even my fault. It's everyone else's fault. It has to be theirs and not mine. It's pure idiotic from people to cause this. But it's a good thing that this happens. It always is, and there will always be a reason for this, and reasons for other shootings, unless it's some Indian guy who wanted to blow up just for the fun of it, which is what those people do. I find that a bit funny. Not really funny to the point I'd laugh my ass off, but still, maybe you get the point here, and maybe you don't, and I think I might be crazy. Maybe you'll see me as a weirdo, a freak, just as some of you do now, but I'm not. I am not like the others. I would never ever want to be like them, with how they think, what they do on a simple day. I hate how the population thinks, grows, and talks, and how they make romance fake. If only some days we could do public execution, that would be gladly needed. I wouldn't mind throwing some stones at idiots, or even watching from the far back when they get hanged. Twitter can prove that for a fact, or so I think, and I think a lot more than some people think I do, or maybe they think what I think because most people can't do what I'm going to do. Death is something most people need to embrace and accept, rather than running away from it. Once you know, you'll be proven guilty on all charges, and wish to be killed in any good way. That is not simple. It is more painful than anything else, or at least I would hope on that behalf. Revolution and population. The revolution should be well, the population should be well, but it's not and never will be. I want to change that, but will I truly? The population of scum has never been worked over the years as it did during the wars and fighting over what should be right and wrong. The sick people will dissolve into dust and be forgotten about, and you will ruin the human potential and turn into horrors of filth and beings that shouldn't live. Horrors and scum are things I hate the most and will always hate. You have no meaning. You and your parents should be hanged in front of everyone. Niggers, though, worse. Once you sleep with one, you are one. I don't care who you think you are or what you've done good for this world of yours. It will never matter because you will always have no thought and no brain to continue with. I hate looking at some of the people in society and seeing what they are and what they do with their lives, like how one does do that, but I know how out of scum and just pure retardedness. I'm glad to be different and not the same as other people. I know how to be formal. I know how to use my words. Even if I get mad at you, there has always been a reason, whether or not I despise you or just 'cause I can. Some of you guys really do deserve the execution punishment, rather painful. Or not you deserve to be dead, but yet doesn't the whole world deserve that? The main target has been anyone with some sort of feeling or being of knowing any action to turn you wrong and left rather than right and better. Either way, I will always hate humanity, and it will never be overruled. If someday it's so overruled, I shall never see that day, knowing how this world is and how everyone is scum of filth. Nobody will ever overrule it, and all everyone will be is some worthless thing. Out of all serious talk, though, how everyone forces either religion on others or how some people just disobey the right from wrong and using wrong for the worse. What I'm simply doing is not wrong, one single bit, may be sure to some people due to the harmful studies according to some people. The hate I get and the hate you get is mutual. You hate me and I will always hate you as well, no matter what you've done to me, but you will always have a little piece of hate. I don't care what you think, nor would I ever really. I'd rather be dead than sit in a small room all day, no matter if it's school, work, or even my own room. Even if I like being alone, I will never be like anyone else and ruin my mind. I am part of the real thought and the real revolution. Well, that's what we have of the manifesto, and yeah, that person is not a leftist. I'll tell you right now, that person is not a queer activist. I was looking for some signs in the language, and early on in the manifesto, let me just go back, talking about how they hate society. I kind of thought that, okay, so they could be saying they hate the current system, but then you're looking for well, what do they want to replace it with? What do they hate about society specifically, which they don't really seem to say. When they were talking about how they're a weirdo freak, they're not like the other people, that I almost thought, I was like, oh, are we going down the queer rabbit hole now? Are we going there? But I have to tell you, as soon as I got onto the next page, and even on the next page, they have a section called Revolution and Population, and I was like, okay, so if you're talking about revolution, are you talking about the revolution to overthrow capitalism, which some people would say also aligns with the need to control the population, because some people, although it is actually a very small bit on the radical revolutionary far left, think about population control and with that. So I was like, okay, maybe this could be about population control and the revolution and all that stuff. Nope. Because the minute I get to the N-word, and I apologize if that word was offensive to anyone, but I was just reading the manifesto as it was. I was actually rather surprised to see it, if I'm honest. I really thought, based on the scuttlebutt, and I can't believe I just used the word scuttlebutt, but I did. I was pretty surprised by the scuttlebutt on social media, because I kind of thought this person was a leftist even before I read this manifesto, and then I get to the N-word, and I'm like, oh, no. There is no leftist, there is no queer activist that is ever going to say the full N-word, hard R. That's not going to happen. They're also talking about sick people not being taken care of. They're talking about whores, and those are just not words that are going to come out of leftists or queer theorists' mouth, because queer activists believe sex work should be work. A lot of them are sex workers. They're not going to call people whores, because they'd be calling themselves that, and so they're certainly not going to do that in a derogatory way, which is what we see being done in this manifesto. So for my money, listen, I'm not like a mind reader. I don't know that much about this case other than what I just read on the manifesto and the very brief search I did right before this. I think that this person is just a mentally deranged person. I don't have any signs here that this person is a leftist. Maybe they were trans, maybe they weren't. Maybe they were taking testosterone, maybe they weren't. I don't know either way, and I'm sure we're going to find out someday about that. But they were absolutely not a queer activist. They were absolutely not a leftist. And this reads to me more like someone that's kind of tapped into more right-leaning communities and kind of just like an unhinged person. Maybe they've been overly medicated on psychiatric drugs. Maybe they've had a lot of hardship. I mean, the manifesto talked about having hardship with their family and stuff like that. Obviously, life did not treat this person very well, or they probably wouldn't have done what they did. At the end of the day, every shooting is a tragedy. I don't really think we should be utilizing school shootings to take cheap shots at our political opponents. I think that's just in a very bad taste for me. I know many people out there will do it. Many people will disagree with me on that, but I just think it's in very bad taste. I think it's a sad state of affairs that so many young people are being pushed to this, and maybe it's from hormones that they're taking for transition. Maybe it's just from psychiatric medications, like things like Adderall or things like that. Who really knows? Because kids today are on so many different drugs that are just unnecessary. In my opinion, I'm not, a pharmacist or a psychiatrist or anything like that, but it just seems to me that a lot of these problems might not be happening if we just reduce the amount of psychiatric medication we're giving to underage kids for whatever reason we're doing it. But definitely 100% not a leftist. Definitely 100% not a queer activist. Remember, they can be trans without being a queer activist. Those are two mutually exclusive categories. Just because someone is trans doesn't make them queer. In fact, you don't need to be gay or trans to be queer. All you need to do to be queer is just to say that you are. A straight white man can be queer if they say that they're queer. if they act queer, if they reject normativity in society. So we might find out this person is trans. That does not mean they're a trans activist. It does not mean they're a queer activist. They're 100% not involved in those communities, and I can tell that just based on reading the manifesto. So I hope you enjoyed this analysis. Let me know what you think. Head over to the Substack, Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Head to the podcast section, leave a note or comment on this episode, and tell me what you think about my analysis. Tell me your analysis. Do you think I missed anything? Did I get anything wrong? Let me know. I would really love to hear from you. I do read all the comments on the Substack. And of course, if you appreciate the work I'm doing while you're there, you can sign up to support it for $8 a month, $80 a year. I'm 100% funded by you. I cannot do this without you, and I really appreciate it. We'll see you next time, guys. Have a good one.